Let's talk about the high end of both the residential and commercial real estate business in Nigeria is, of course, arguably the playground of the country's ultra-wealthy. But what does asset management for the rich and wealthy Nigerians looks like when it comes to financial asset classes? Speaking with me on this is the CEO of Cowry Asset Management, Chukwu, and he's joining me now virtually to speak to this. Good evening, sir, and thanks for coming through. I'm sure the Airtel Africa story is a big deal that you are not missing.
Yes, absolutely. There's no way anybody will miss that story because it has a huge impact on wealth management, institutional wealth management. As you may know, a number of the investors in Airtel are institutional investors. You just mentioned the LBN holdings. And it simply means that investment has turned out very strongly positive for them. So you basically be talking to those who are holding instruments that have strong potential for growth. And that also shows the world where to invest. The information and communication technology sector has been a growth sector for the past 20 years. And it looks like a sector that will continue to grow in the foreseeable future. So investment in that sector by wealth managers, by asset managers who are managing wealth for institutional investors and individual investors, it's a proof of the return prospects or opportunities in that sector.
The growth that we're seeing in the, when you talk about wealth asset management for rich and ultra-wealthy in Nigeria, I'm not sure if there's anyone who doesn't have his fingers in either MTN or Airtel Africa shares on the market.
Well, a couple of them do. Many of the Nigerian institutional investors and HNIs, high net worth individuals, invested in these entities at the onset when they got their licenses. If you recall, a number of Nigerian investors invested in MTN. Airtel used to be Econet, and then I know a number of Nigerian investors invested in then Econet, eventually became Airtel at the onset. So, and these investors, those who invested in MTN have already cashed out. Many of them have made multiples of what they invested. The Airtel investment seemed at that point, at some point, to have not actually grown as much as that of MTN. But with this acquisition by Airtel, or buying out of minority investors, then the investors who have stayed put in Airtel instruments are going to be smiling to their banks.
What actually, Johnson, what informs a portfolio and asset classes investment decisions by wealthy people? Do they think the way poor folks like us, ordinary folks like us, think in terms of what attracts them, whatever they're investing in terms of assets?
Well, the first thing they look at is the sector they want to invest in. What are the prospects of those sectors? They would dimension the sector and look at the risk and the return threshold in that sector. They will look at the economy they're investing in, that is the overall sovereign risk of that economy. Then they will look at their own cash flow needs. And a lot of them, they will also measure their risk appetite. Some people have very strong risk appetite, or what we call volatile risk appetite. Some have conservative investment approach. These are some of the factors that you have to look at before making a jump into an investment asset. So for institutional investors as well as HNIs, high net worth individuals, they have to look at the sector, the sovereign risk of the country they're invested in, and the macroeconomic environment. Is that economy stable? What's happening to the exchange rate? What's happening to the interest rate? And this is a factor. And then you also look at the political situation of the country where you're investing in. Once you factor in these things, you make a judgment call on what to invest in, what sector to invest in, how much of your assets to allocate to that asset class, and beyond asset class, how much to allocate to individual instruments within an asset class.
My final question, but again, I'm just bringing that forward based on what you're saying right now about whether the ultra-wealthy and the rich are really worried about inflation. Are they worried about exchange rate? Do they care whether it's $1 to 500 naira? Do they worry about interest rates or whatever? Do they really?
Yes, they're the ones that worry most about this macro economic indicators. In the first place, most ultra-rich investors measure their wealth in dollar terms. So they are so sensitive to changes in exchange rate that could devalue their net worth or actually boost their net worth depending on the direction of exchange rates. They are concerned about interest rate because interest rate will influence the prices of equities, it will influence the prices of debt instruments and bonds and similar or every other investable asset class. They are worried about other monetary policy factors because each of these factors have direct impact on the value of the assets and the liquidity of the assets. So they are the most worried, they are the most concerned about macroeconomic parameters and the direction of those parameters.
Okay, so let's look at the equities market. What sectors or stocks do we really have the rich and the wealthy in Nigeria investing? What sectors? Tell me.
Well, they are quite strong in information and telecommunication technology. We just mentioned what has happened in Airtel. We know beyond the institutional investors that are selling, the minority shareholders, you also have a lot of wealthy Nigerians and institutions that are invested in these asset classes. They are investing in the real estate sector. They are investing in Eurobond. You must have observed that in recent past, all the Eurobond offers were more than 100%, 200% oversubscribed. So because of the sensitivity of institutional investors and high HNIs,